All right, photography, we are going to talk about beginning to assess your negatives and choosing one of your pictures from your roll of film to make as a final print. So a couple of the materials that you will need are your contact sheet, which should already be made. You'll want a magnifier, and you will want one of these China markers. And this is just a little bit kind of like a greasy pencil that you're able to write on top of your contact sheet. So again, we've already made our contact sheet. Those were my negatives. I've gone into the darkroom. I've made my contact sheet. And I really just want you to look for maybe 2 or 3 pictures at this point that you think are your strongest. So we're looking at composition. I want you, once you've kind of narrowed down which of your images that you think are the most interesting, I want you to think about, are they actually in focus, perfectly in focus? And you can kind of see, like right here, I had taken several pictures of the same kind of viewpoint, maybe a little bit different, but out of these 3, this one was the best, so I kind of circled it. And that's just to be like a little visual reminder. So as you look at this whole spread of sheets, you can kind of quickly identify the images that you've already assessed and think are the best. But you want to make sure that it is perfectly in focus. So once you have actually kind of looked through your magnifier, you should be able to see that it is really in focus, that you have a decent focal point. Really look at the exposure. So does it have good contrast? Is there a good value range? The lighting, etc. Now, one thing I do want to point out is you can see this bottom row of my contact sheet really was pretty light. Like, look how thick those negatives are, right? Those are pretty thick. I'm going to turn on my light box here for a moment. And even just holding it up, you can see that that bottom row is a lot more dense, okay? So some of your images on your contact sheet may or may not show up very well, but that just simply means that if I really wanted to do this picture, I can already tell, wow, I really love the composition of this. I love the mood. It's not that it doesn't make a good print. It's just that's not the right time, right? I always make sure to label what roll of film this was, how many seconds I made my contact sheet at, so I remember, so that, years later I can go back and work from some of these same negatives. But that just simply means if that's the image that I wanted to choose to work from, I need more time. That is way too light. Or you can see up here, this one is really, really dark at 5 seconds. So that's where I can go and change some of my exposure settings or my time or my filter. I can make some adjustments and still be able to make that work. Okay, but once you have selected, so say I liked this one the best, and you can notice there's a little bit of a scratch there. That's just because I have a scratch on my piece of paper here. And sometimes, honestly, you can kind of see some of the scratches on my plastic. That's why we keep our negatives in a plastic sheet, so that way they don't get damaged. But at this point, I would select this row of negatives, okay, because this is the one I want. So I would take this whole row out, and here's my picture, and I would use that whole row and insert it into my negative carrier, okay? Notice, again, that it's not individually cut out, right? They're a whole strip. There should be 5 images per row. The only reason that we had those individual negatives before was because I took a whole roll of the same image for you guys to practice on. So you would just put that into your negative carrier, and you would go to work.